Welcome to Sisterhood Checkin. I am your author and coach, Nadira Lewis. I'm excited to be able to join you guys each and every Friday. Man, it has just been one of those weeks where I'm just so bubbly and excited. I cannot wait to be able to converse with my guest today. Guys, I'm telling you, you are in for a treat. First, we're going to go over housekeeping rules. If you are watching me on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. If you are watching on sisterhoodcheckin.com, or if you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, make sure you click like and share if you're blessed by the content that you have been seeing. So guys, I hope you guys had an amazing week. I tell you, this has been a busy but yet productive week. So I can't really complain. God is good. He is still on the throne. But I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you really quick. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our amazing guests, Dr. Kimberly Hunter Clayton and Dr. David Stevens. We'll see you right after this.
Sometimes it's not enough to be reminded that Jesus hasn't left you or forgotten you. We need to declare it over ourselves, over others. No matter the season you may find yourself in, no matter the depths of darkness you're wading through, you can join him in declaring the truth. That God is light upon your feet, whether or not you can see the next step. That God is your strength, even though the weight of life seems to be crushing you down. And that when your job, your marriage, your relationship, your health feels like it's coming to a dead end, there is only one God that can make dead things live again. These are his promises, and they're the only thing you need to declare over your life. So as you step into this next season or this next moment, you can declare that God's not done with you. He's just getting started. You can declare that the good work that he has started in you, he will surely complete it. You can declare that the same God that parted the seas goes before you, goes behind you. You can declare these promises over your life, over your family's life, over the people passing on the street. You can declare these truths over every circumstance, over every season of your life. You can declare that every day belongs to him and every new breath belongs to him. Because we have the power of a living God living inside of us. And this is our declaration.
Welcome back here to Sisterhood Checkin. Whoa, that every time I watch that video, I am always amazed that we have the power of the living God on the inside of us. And this is our declaration. What a powerful ending statement. Welcome back to Sisterhood Checkin. I cannot wait to introduce my two amazing guests that are here, Dr. Kimberly Hunter Clayton and Dr. David Stevens Sr. Welcome to Sisterhood Checkin.
Thank you.
How are you guys?
Very excited. Very excited.
Wonderful.
I tell you, that intro is amazing.
Oh God, I'm telling you, I love it. Every time I watch it, it just still feels like it's the first time every time I watch it. So I'm always like, it just feels like it's just new to me. Every time I turn it on, I'm like, yeah, I get powered up in God and just like can't wait to see what he's going to do, especially in this broadcast. Now, Dr. Kimberly, this is your second time here on Sisterhood Check-In. How are you feeling? Welcome back.
Thank you. Wonderful, amazing. A lot has transpired since I was here the last time. So always definitely glad to be here on this wonderful platform and just to be able to collaborate and share with you and your fans and in your community.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Stevens, this is your first time with us. How does it feel to be on
Oh,
a platform with women?
oh, it is amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing. I'm glad to be here. I really appreciate you for extending the invitation to be a part of this. It's just wonderful. My goodness. You ladies know how to get it going on. Have a great time. I love the
Yes.
energy.
Thank
Love
you.
the
Thank
energy.
you.
Euphoric spirit. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you. And I'm excited to see what some of the things that God has done in both you and Kimberly's life. Last time when Kimberly was here, we had a little bit of a distraction and some interruption in her sharing her testimony. Kimberly just posted on her Facebook today, which was amazing. I always love hearing about her story, about what happened to her and how she's gotten. So, Kimberly, if you don't mind, can you kind of, for those that didn't get a chance to hear your testimony, you had some amazing things happen to you. Would you give us a little bit of a clip and let us know exactly what has God done in your life that has brought you to this place, to where you are the woman that you are now?
So I'm gonna make this real condensed the best that I can. A lot of people know that 2010 I began going through kidney failure in 2010, and I was a household on there with you during that time. I had kidney failure in 2010, which is 14 years ago. Definitely a life change, to say the least. I wound up getting a kidney and a pancreas in July of 2011. Amazing. I had juvenile diabetes, so I was 6 beginning to affect my kidneys. So would require me to have a kidney transplant. People that are type 1 diabetic, your body does not produce insulin, right? So my body wasn't producing any insulin or little to none. So that's why I was a candidate for a pancreas transplant. Type 2 diabetes, your body produces insulin, but your body cannot utilize the insulin that it produces. So it's a difference. And I was type 1. They'll never give a transplant to type 2 because, again, the issue is not insulin depletion. It's just that your body can't metabolize insulin. So, nevertheless, I got a kidney and a pancreas transplant in July of 2011. Fast forward to March of 2012, my husband was killed in a car accident, which was my son's dad. Killed in a car accident on March 22nd, 2012. I understood that God needed me to be healthy and well to sit down, be the sole person taking care of my family. So now I understood the order of why He allowed me to get that transplant so soon. Now I know 8 months later I'll be a single parent. So again, just very grateful. Fast forward. My daughter was 20 years old. I often, every time I got a new degree, I would send communication through Shands, Gainesville to the family, letting them know, that how I'm in school again because my donor wanted to go to school to be a doctor, and she was 20 years old. I just know that she was in a car accident, and when you get a transplant, they don't tell you sex. I'm sorry, sex doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. So all they tell you is sex and African American. I have no idea because, again, that doesn't matter when you're looking for organs. So I always would share with the family how I'm going to school, getting a degree, and I would always give them, invite them if they want to come to my ceremonies. I never got a chance to meet them in person. They always told me that it was too hard for them. They were still grieving, and that was their only child. So I understood. So I still did my part and contact with them. I still would send things to them. So since that time, I was able to obtain 6 additional degrees after my transplant.
Wow.
Doing very well. Fast forward to 2021, right in the heart of COVID, my job required us to take the vaccine. It was not optional. It was a mandate because of us being providers. We saw so many people losing their lives on the front line that we had to take the vaccine. Well, no one knew what the vaccine would do, especially for a person that had a transplant like myself. It caused me to go through rejection in 2021.
Wow.
Very devastating because I felt that I was doing everything the right way, and now I took a vaccine that I'm told to take, and I wound up going through kidney rejection. So that was very hard. That was very, very, very hard for me. I was right in the middle of going to two schools. I was getting my doctor's degree at Torrey University, and I was at Liberty University taking full-time classes to get my second mental health degree. Crazy, I know, but I was doing it and working a full-time job. So now you're in the middle of going through kidney rejection. You're in two schools at the same time. You're working a full-time job. My son had just went off to college, so it was a lot for me. I wound up having to withdraw from the psych program, mental health, because I couldn't do both programs at that time for the rejection. Dr. Stevens traveled many times to Jacksonville to take me to my appointments, going back and forth to Gainesville, trying to stop the rejection. Nevertheless, I still wound up going through for rejection. Even after they tried everything that could, I still went through for rejection. So what that looks like for me is that I'm back on a transplant list, and I share my story because I know if God did it before, He's able to do it again. So I don't have pity parties. I still work right now. I still work. We're opening the practice up. I'm not allowed that to stop me. I mean, I'm human, so I do have days where I don't feel well. I have days where I'm just tired. I mean, days that I'll be like, man, I just want to give up, and that lasts for a moment because again, I'm human, right? I mean, so I mean, I'm allowed to feel those emotions because of what I've gone through, but I don't allow it to stop me from the goal at hand. So nevertheless, I'm actively on to our transplant waiting list now for a second transplant. I have some family members that are going to go get tested as well, to see if they're donors. I have not publicly shared that portion of my story publicly until now because one, I know that a lot of times we have to keep some things to ourselves, not embarrassment, but just that we have to absorb it ourselves first before we run tell everybody, right? So this is the first time I've shared that part in a public platform that I'm sharing right now, and I feel confident to share it. If I didn't, I wouldn't share it. But again, I need people to know that my faith is that if God did it before, He can and He shall, and He will do it again.
Kimberly, the more I listen, the more I'm just like leaping on the inside because I had told you this earlier. And usually before I have people come up, I'm always asking God to show me, who to bring on the show, who should I invite. I'm always asking the Lord. I even ask him down to the topics to discuss. And it's crazy because I was asking the Lord, when I saw your thing and I was like, man, this is like before I even saw your post. And I was thinking like, who am I going to invite on Sisterhood Check-In this time? And you clearly like came up in my head and I'm thinking, I never question whenever God tells me to do something. I just do it. I've gotten to the place where I know, okay, there's something that he maybe, and I'm like, well, at first I was thinking she's already shared her testimony. She may not want to share it again. Me trying to figure out in the natural, not even knowing. And then up until today, I was like, Lord, what is the title? Like, what am I going to? And he said, God did it. And so when I sent you the thing and then I saw your Facebook post and I said, what? And I was like, obedience is better than sacrifice. Sometimes we try to figure things out before we always, you're human. We want to know the end from the beginning. And sometimes God, as you obey, he begins to unfold as you obey. And so I'm just like, I'm listening to you and I'm like, what? God? Like, it just encourages you to be more obedient because you never know what God is doing in a particular situation. And I really believe that this situation, because God knows our end from our beginning, I believe that he's already made provision for what it is that you need in order to function because of your heart and because of the purpose and the plan that God has for you. I really, in my heart, and I'm not just saying that just to say that, I know that God has kept you alive for this season for a reason. And so I'm just excited. I can't wait to see what God is going to do, because you, girl, I'm like, dang, she in school and because I remember when we were a household and you were in school, I'm like, God, this girl is really dedicated. Like, and she got children too. Like, or how we say children, she got children too. I'm like, but I didn't even know back then your struggle. I just thought you were just a hardworking mom. But then when we got to, when you started to share a little bit of what you went through, I was like, oh my God, we have no excuse, because you literally I remember when you were talking about LPN and then RN, and then next thing you know, it was RN and all alphabets started. We were celebrating all these alphabets that was being added to your name. And I was like, this girl is serious. She is going in. And to see that when I saw that you had posted that you were now doctor, I was like, this girl is really doing her thing. So it really is encouraging.
It is to God be the glory.
That are watching. Yeah.
It truly is. It is to God be the glory, because like I say, there are days where I would just be so tired, couldn't even hardly get out of my car after I left dialysis, just tired. But I trust God. I trust him, and I trust him wholeheartedly. I was still able to work a full-time job, to still provide for my family. Truly, I had patients who on dialysis that couldn't even work, So I truly give God the praise, the honor, and the glory for what he's doing and what he's yet to do. So,
man, I have so much respect for you. Like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I always admired your drive and your goal, but man, it's like you are really doing the darn thing. Like, you are really out here. Now, I know you said that I know from what I suspect you guys are best friends, because I see it all on Facebook. My best friend, my BFF, my BFF, my BFF. So it's amazing to have somebody there. You know what I'm saying? That can make sure that you're good. You know what I'm saying? That's a blessing, Dr. Stevens. That is amazing, to be able to travel, because I think you're in Georgia, right? You're in Georgia?
Right. I'm in Georgia. That's correct.
To be able to travel to Jacksonville. Wow. That is a blessing. I tell you what, I'm telling you, no greater love than this, than a man that lays down his life for his friend. That is amazing. Dr. Stevens, you are really operating in ministry for real, for real. You, even though, and I want you to get into it. I know you're a pastor of your church and stuff like that, but you are really hands-on in ministry. Like, this isn't like I'm a pastor now. I'm gonna send my, you stood in the gap and said, hey, my BFF, you need me, I'm gonna be there. That is amazing. Wow. That's amazing.
Absolutely. It is just so amazing, and it just puts really chill bumps all over me that you just even named this particular podcast. God did it, because it's almost like the Wonder Twins that are taking place. Probably that younger generation don't know anything.
I remember the Wonder Twins.
But it's I have a situation or an experience, let me put it that way, that Kim and I have been friends 40 plus years, 40 years.
Wow.
And God has just truly been a blessing. She's truly blessed me. Coming out of Meridian, Mississippi as well too. I grew up in Catholicism, and after the age of 23, ended up converting to the Protestant faith. And I've always wanted to be a Catholic priest, and it used to be, going into the Baptist faith, and I'm asking God, why? Just why?
Mm-hmm.
Would you place me into a denomination I have no understanding of? None whatsoever. And God ended up revealing to me for that very reason to never get caught up in just tradition, the traditions of man, for me to be able to follow the word of God. And that was his answer unto me, to be able to share and to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ. That I'm amazed for. Ended up moving to Georgia, 2008, pastored there, and God truly grew the ministry in a dynamic way. Really, really grew. And in 2017, we ended up having to go through a situation that ended up taking you what David says in Psalm 40. Okay, now this is my story from Psalms 40, when David had to cry unto God because of the situations that he's experienced. And what brought me out of this situation from a word point is that David said, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me, and he heard my cry. Is what David experienced. He heard my cry. Here's my cry. Went through a rather challenging and difficult divorce, and difficult and hard on both sides. Of course, divorce is never easy deal, and went through a hard time, and whereby didn't get a chance to see my son quite as much. And to be honest with you, to be totally transparent, after pastoring and being a preacher, one of faith, love God, life can hit you. In fact, I understand what Job's wife said when she saw her husband. See, we talk about the faith of Job, of what he had to experience and what he saw. He lost his children, lost his commodities, lost his creatures, lost so many things. And he ended up going into this bad place, if you will. And he sat down in sackcloth and ashes. And I think about the other side of Job, which is his wife. Not only did Job lose everything, his wife lost everything. She lost her kids. She lost her house. She lost her servants. She lost the crops. She lost all of the help that is there. And in fact, she asked a question or made a statement, why don't you just curse God and die? That's a hard place. That's a hard place. David even understood about this horrible pit of Psalms 40, this horrible pit that he was in, and he had to cry unto God. I was at a horrible place in 2017, and my son actually texted me, and it was a very, very dark place, dark, dismal pit of my life. My son texted me and asked for a $10 gift card. This was when the games, he's really trying to get into his games and so on. And he's constantly asking for these, currency. And when he asked that of me, I had some things on my mind, some bad things on my mind. After reading that text, David simply said, Daddy, can I have $10? A $10 gift card. All those horrible things that you would think about make you want to say, there's no way I can leave out of this. There's no way I can leave this world. And so I worked extremely hard in trying my very best to give him those things, because like Job, I lost everything. I lost my house, I lost my career, I lost family, lost wife, lost children, lost everything. Kimberly, Dr. Clayton, actually reached out, caught me at that point in time. And she said something that I thought was just crazy at the moment. She calls me up and she's literally, hey, David, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know how I'm doing. You had asked this question. This is the pits of my life. I don't have a place to stay. I'm living on the streets. I lived in Riverside here in Macon, Georgia. lived in a mom and pop's diner. I lived outside and ended up having to go and after starting another church, my church knew nothing of this, of what I was homeless. My church knew nothing of that. I guess they will find out now. They knew nothing of this. I literally had to walk more than 7 miles every Sunday and every Wednesday. I had to leave by 4 o'clock in the morning to get to church, so no one would see me. No one would see me because I was just really, it was hurtful, very painful, embarrassing. And when this is going on, Kim calls me up and asks, how you doing? And I'm okay. I'm doing terrible. Anyhow, she invites me, and I told her about, I'm homeless. She knows about this. I'm on the side, and she asked me, "Hey, David, let's go on a cruise."
Wow.
Of all things, I don't have a house to live in. I'm living on the street. I'm staying, and in 2008, snowed in Macon. I know this because I slept in the snow.
Wow.
And she said, "Let's take a cruise to get you out of this." And I'm like, of all things to do, the last thing on my mind. The last thing on my mind. Anyhow, fast forward, we ended up taking the cruise. And it was during that time we got a chance to pray on the cruise.
Yes.
It was a long time to be there. Yeah. And it was on that cruise in that boat by myself in the room. And it's like God began to reveal unto me that he's going to restore. And I left that ship. I never told this out of it. I left that ship with these words in my heart. God did it.
What? You better stop it.
When I tell you, I had chill bumps when you started saying that.
Are you serious? No, for real. You're not just saying that, right? Serious. For real, like, wow.
I'm thinking, why would you ask me to go on a cruise and I'm homeless? Wow. Get on the boat. Get away from all this, had a time with God in that ship, on that ship, in that room, by myself. By the end of that cruise, the words that were spoken to me, he's going to restore. God did it.
I'm about to just knock this over.
God did it.
What?
God did it. God did it.
I'm speechless. Like, what?
I don't want to be the one to prolong this. I'm so sorry, but God did it.
Wow.
God did this. And of course, returning back to Macon, Georgia, I continue with the walk and continue with it. God grew our church, no finances. Remember at this time, the church doesn't know anything that their pastor is home. I've never received or don't receive any type of compensation whatsoever because I wanted God to continue to bless our church.
Yeah.
Bless our church to this day. Not one thing, just want our church to be blessed. Want our church to be blessed. And it just be able to show through situations of all things, God did it to where we are today. God did it to where we are today. It's so ironic in 2021 when Dr. Clayton had this kidney challenges to take place there, because it's only a challenge, but God gonna do that too.
Yes, amen.
Challenge that was going on there. I rolled into William Carey there in Mississippi to get a second master's as well too, and going into medical school there, and fortunately had to pull out, unfortunately, to be able to put some time and attention onto one of my businesses that I have in Macon, Georgia, that is, deals with the federal government too. So had to put a lot of time on that. And once again, of always aspiring to want to be that doctor, to see God put into Dr. Clayton her spirit, this vision, and to be able to be a part of it as a co-partner with it, it just goes to testify again. God did it. I'm listen, I'm done.
I'm like,
I'm done.
I'm like, oh my, I feel so numb. Like, I'm like, Lord, God is just always revealing himself. And that's what I love about God, is that he does things like this to motivate us and encourage us and to let us know he's an ever-present help, right? He's always listening to us. And I think sometimes we need those shake-up moments, right? Because what I didn't tell you in the story I was telling y'all earlier before we, and I always love like before and after stations of Sisterhood Checkin, because every guest, we had some amazing conversations before and afterwards. And one of the things that I realized is that I saw when I was married to my husband before he passed, I knew in my spirit, like I was like almost like hiding under, because he was, here it was, I was, leading a Bible study, at my home. I was living in Jacksonville, Florida, over on Monaco Drive, and I was in a little apartment. It was just 3 of us left. Everybody moved out. It was just 3 of us. I had never lived on the north side, but I had a mentorship program, and I knew God called me to do this mentoring program, and things were falling apart because their lives were changing. I was like, Lord, this mentorship program I'm doing is definitely a faith walk, but I knew God's hand was in it. Well, what happened was I started to feel like, oh my gosh, I was getting discouraged because I'm looking at other coaches and mentors, and and I'm like, God, not even realizing what was going on. And I'm telling you, God was just really just showing me. I was kind of hiding because when I got married, I was like, oh, good. He could preach. He could do all I'm just going to sit my feminine, and I'm just going to sit still and take care of the kids, and I'm good, right? I was hiding because being in the presence of God means there's a level of accountability, right? You can't have that kind of access to God. Mm-hmm. I was experiencing things with God, even at household, in worship, that I would be like in awe at things that how he was revealing himself to me. You can't have that level of interaction with God and not be accountable to do something. Right. And I wanted to hide because I didn't want to be. I wanted to stay under so when I got married, I was like, okay, he's not really pastoring, but he was ministering. He was a minister. I was like, we good. You could teach Bible study. We good. And I was getting really complacent in the plan and purposes that God had for me. And God was literally speaking to me. He said to me, I remember I was in the living room, he said, you're getting complacent. And I'm like, he got this, he the head of the house, he got this, I'm gonna stay here and take care of the baby, and I'm just going to take a break from being in control all the time. I'm always the one doing this. I'm gonna let him do him. And that's when I started to see different things happen. And I realized now, I'm like, I was complacent in my walk. And so sometimes God has to shake things up.
Yes.
Bring you back to a place like, now do you hear what I'm saying? You being married and being in a position doesn't mean you get to sit back and relax and don't do what I called you to do. Right? We were in Georgia. We took the Bible study from Jacksonville at our home. We was going to Faith Christian Center in the daytime. At nighttime, we would have Bible study. 40 people would show up in my tiny little 2-bedroom apartment. 40 people would show up. We would praise God and do Bible study. These were like young people, 20, 24. And in my little apartment, sometimes the water would just run down the ceiling. They didn't care. We were still, worshiping. Sometimes we would be worshiping sometimes at 4 or 5 in the morning. Didn't have to go straight to work. And God was showing me I was getting complacent because we came to Georgia, had become a part of a ministry. And we were like, we're good. We could sit and let him preach. And then it got to a place where we started having Bible studies at home after church. Same thing. I still have pictures of us sitting in the living room with no furniture, with kids and young adults sitting around the walls of my living room floor while my husband and I were teaching Bible study. And So I started thinking like, oh my gosh. So I felt like, oh, he got this. He's the husband. He got this. I felt good. Like I can rest, right?
Mhm.
But I knew that the Lord was telling me I was getting complacent. I was getting complacent. And so when he passed away so abruptly, and God was showing me things before, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was a shakeup that caused me to realize that it's a dangerous place to be in a state of passivity, which in God's eyes, lukewarmness. You know, when you become lukewarm, you become complacent, and God has to shake things up, just like he did with Job. And it's funny that even talking about Job, because I had did a broadcast last week and God was showing me, gave me a revelation about Job, how your trials are orchestrated.
Mm.
And I myself listened to that message at least 3 or 4 times since I recorded it. And what God was showing me in your trials being orchestrated was that Job in the natural, just like we were going through things in our life on a day-to-day basis, doing what humans do. Why, God? What's going on? What's happening? Not realizing that God is presenting us before Satan and saying, knowing that Satan looking for somebody to destroy. And God offering him up and
Correct.
saying, have you considered Job? Like, really, God? Like, you really gonna let me go through this? And this like, really, God? Like, you couldn't pick nobody up but me? But here's the interesting thing that God was showing me, that even Job had enough integrity and understanding about God that he knew that if it was happening to him, it was happening for him.
Correct.
Right? He knew. He may not have known. It's even in his wife telling him to curse God and die. It says that Job lost his possessions first, right? He's losing his possessions. And then in the same breath, talk about back-to-back calamity, you know, and his kids. But it's crazy because Job, it said the first thing he did was he worshiped.
Correct.
And I'm like, okay, God, I don't have a relationship with you, but I'm going to tell you, it was very hard to worship you when my husband was tragically killed, right? Mm-hmm. But Job worshiped, right? And then it's amazing because God looked at him like, who are you? Were you there when he begins to, start to talk down about himself and start to talk about all the things that was happening and how he wished that he wasn't even born. And then God shows up and say, look, was you there? And I did. It's like, wait a minute, God. First of all, you put me in this.
Stars.
You put me in this. And then you're gonna get mad because I'm feeling some kind of way about this. And then you're gonna show up and tell me, was I there? Where's the sympathy? Like what? But what it showed me was, and I kept looking at it because every time I deal with certain things in when I go through certain stages and phases in my walk, I have to remind myself that the steps of a good man are ordered, whether they're ordered in tribulation or whether they're ordered in victory or whatever. Your steps are ordered, and you have to change your position to think and get out of this mindset of everything's going to be cookies and cream and everything's going to be fun. Your faith is going to stand trial, right? You're going to have to prove the things that you say you believe, because faith is evidence. It's evidence, right? And you can't prove evidence, right, unless it's tested. So I'm like, y'all, I'm like how they did on Color Purple, where they close the piano. I'll be like, okay,
close up.
What?
Yeah,
I'm telling you, Lord have mercy.
It's amazing. I love that as well too. The passage about Job, when you talked about how he was going through all of this, and you ask God, and I'm sure he asked the question. You just have to. God, where are you in this? God, what's really going on in this? Mm-hmm. And even from now, I'm even going into from a behavioral, emotional standpoint when it comes to God, and even spirituality as well there too. I love it, like you said. Job said he shaved his head, he sat down, sackcloth, ashes, rent his mantle, shaved his head, and he worshiped. Worship. He understood that he was going through a difficult moment in life. And what we need to understand in that, when we need help, because his worship is like, God, I need you.
Right.
God, I love you. God, I need you in such a time as this, and that horrible pit situation. And what you see out of all that, you really can't get any help until you won't allow help to find you. You won't get help until you allow help to find you, because his worship allowed God to talk to him in his worship. Allow his worship, because my flesh, my pain, my hurt, what I'm going through emotionally, I lost everything, and I need your help. If you look throughout the Bible, you'll see so many. David hollering out, creating me a clean heart and give me a right. You see that. You see Isaiah hollering about, woe is me, for I am undone. Those individuals that's going through difficult moments in life, like who we are today as Christians living in 21st century, 2020, when we go through our moments of life, when we go through our difficult moments, if you want that help, then you have to allow help to find you. God, and I open up myself. I don't close myself. I don't shut myself away, which sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we can shut down, shut off, close ourselves in, get in the fetal position, close the windows, darken the room. But you can't find help until you allow help to find you. And you find in worship. From a preacher standpoint, you find that in that worship that Job did. He could have done so many other things, but that verse that you're talking about, it ends by saying he worshiped.
He worshiped.
He worshiped. Oh gosh, worship. And that's saying, I need thee. I need thee. I need you now, like never before. I'm sorry.
Never before.
Wow. And you know the crazy part is, because I said I was going to do a part 2 to it, right? Because I wanted to talk about, because I didn't want to rush through it. I wanted to talk about Job's friends and how easy I started to see how we are as people. It's so easy for us to want to discern why a person or why we go through what we go through. And we feel like, you know, when you think about what his friends were saying, and they were like, now, we know that God ain't going to just let this happen to you. You know, you sure you ain't do nothing wrong? And when you think about it in the natural, it's funny because Job felt insulted, because he's like, wait a minute, you know I'm a man. You know I'm a man that of integrity. And for you to question, but when you really think about it from a natural perspective, when we see things happening in people's life, it is the human nature to think, what you do? You probably cause that on yourself. You probably did something, because and in some cases it is, but in some cases it really showed me how sometimes you have to be quiet. And because God reveals things in time. And it's funny because he wound up having to pray for his friends, because their discernment, or what they thought was discernment, right? What they thought was going on, right? Was not it. It was God all along. And so what it showed me is like, man, you can actually look at a situation and you can literally say, wow, God did. And that's what happened to me when I looked at when my husband died. I'm like, man, he probably wasn't paying attention. Was he on his phone? You know, because we used to have these little things we would talk, and I would be like,
and that's important, because those are the stages of grief. I mean, you go through the stages of grief, and they're very real. You go through the anger, the denial, you know, and then finally you go through acceptance of it, because you're like, I mean, you're angry, and that's a part of the grieving stage and you have to go through every stage in order to totally be healed. And who knows how long the stage may take you to get through that stage. Exactly. So it's important to have those emotions and to allow your body to feel those emotions and not try to shy from them, because if you don't deal with it now, it's going to deal with you later. So you have to deal with it.
Diseases. Right. And I didn't know that I was holding trauma in my body, like, because I was like that. I was that girl. I didn't want to talk about. I had been through enough horrific stuff. I would just keep my mouth. I didn't want to talk about it. It was just too much. And so I had to get to a point over the years, and it took me years. My husband's been dead 8 years, and it has taken me years to release, because there is no stage or time frame in those different stages of grief. I thought, and my family was like, we're worried about you because you're not grieving. We don't see you. You're not grieving. And I'm like, I'm grieving. But what I wasn't doing, I was just functioning, because I had just had a new baby. So I didn't have the chance to, like you said, Dr. Stevens earlier, to face it. I was just keep going, keep being busy, just keep being busy, keep doing. And one day I was on, both the babies were crying at the same time. McKinley was like, I think 6 months, and Bella was like, she had just turned 3 or something like that. And they both were crying at the exact same time for no reason, right? At like 10 o'clock at night. And that's when it hit me all at one time. And my 22-year-old, he came in the room and he said, Mom, I got them. Because I fell on the floor and I just started crying too. And then I realized all those emotions, as soon as I had a chance to break, it was like a rainfall. Everything came down at one time. Wow. And I realized, oh my gosh, and this was like, my husband had, it was like, by this time it was like almost a year. I had just, everything came down at like a rainfall. And I had to find a way to be able to deal with that. And I'm grateful for the people that God put in the midst of me, because I've had friends of mine that were pastors and of my husband's, and they would come over every week, and just minister to me and bring me out. And who would ever know, the same ones that came to minister to me, he lost his wife early this year. So our family, it's funny because she came, him and his wife, they would come every week, help me with the baby. They would help me because I had a hard time packing up my things. They helped me pack up his things. They helped me move. They would come, just sit with me, have Bible study with me, ask me, what are you really feeling? How are you really dealing with this? And really, really minister, help me dig out all that poison that had kind of piled up. Mm-hmm. And then who would ever know, this year, he lost his wife, because guess what? And I didn't realize it until I talked to the children. When I was talking to the children when I was at the hospice center when she died, and the girls started to talk to me, and they said my mom had pent up so much that she was dealing with, so much. She had brain cancer. She was holding so much in. She was dealing with so much that I literally feel like all of that she was holding in and not releasing, right? She was helping everybody else, right? Helping everybody, ministering to her and her husband, ministering to everybody else, but not taking care of themselves. And literally her husband, he knew how to transfer it to God, but she was holding a lot of it in. And talking to the girls, they really started to really share, and I got a chance to share with them how important it is. That stuff becomes poison. People don't understand that. That's not just a state. That stuff becomes trauma in your body, and then it starts manifesting. When I look at myself now, Kim, and I look at myself 8 years ago, I look younger now than I did then. Because I have learned to release that stuff, and to not just release it, but not pick it back up, Correct. And it's continuous. It's not just time pick it up. No, I'm constantly putting it. Okay, God, I'm laying this before you. It's trying to come back every year during the anniversary. It's trying to come back. We finna lay this down, because I'm not trying to be looking. I'm 50, but I don't want to be looking 80. I want to be like, I like this era in my life. And I have to every year. And this is the first year. This is year 8. This is the first year that when it came around, that I didn't feel that grief gripping my throat, making me feel like reliving, because it's hard. It was hard for me to relive the good without reliving the bad. Because I would think about him, I would get excited at all the good times we had, and then it was hard to think about him and not come to the conclusion that, yeah, you had all these memories, but this also happened too. That's never gonna go away. So it was like hard to even think about him. So I would just push him out of my head, because I didn't want to have to deal with both the good and the bad. And I had to literally talk my way through this and really get to a place to where I thank God for the people that he put in the midst of me to help me dig up and not build a pit. And I'm happy to say, like 8 years today, when his anniversary of his death came, I was just like, God, it is always going to be a shock, but I'm grateful that this year has not really gripped me. And then I used to feel bad for grieving, because I used to feel like people are going to be like, girl, it's been 8 years, girl, you know, it's been this. And I will always hear people say, because I would see people, and David, you probably seen this too, and you too, Kim, right? And what people would say, it's 8 years and you ain't married yet? Like, you 8 years and you, like, I would look at my friends and my in-laws. They would go through divorce and remarry 6 months, year. Like, I have friends that married the next year. And I was like, God, how come, like, I'm still in, and they were like, girl, it's been 8 years, you're still grieving? I'm like, no, I'm just taking time, because I spent so many years taking care and being everything to everybody, that my sister-in-law said this to me. She said, now you get to take the chance and you get to figure out who you are. Because I've been a wife longer than I've been single.
Right.
My first marriage, I was married 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
When we divorced with our 4 kids, I was separated. I was single for 7 years, got married again. And when I got married, I was married for 5 years. And it was crazy, because you don't think about stuff to hindsight, but our wedding song was a prophecy of the length of our. I was like, when I went back, I'm like, you can't get away from God. Like, that song has been 5 years by Jamie Foxx that he sung, and it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
Married 5 years to the day.
Have mercy.
That my husband passed away. So I didn't want to hear anything, because I didn't know how to process. Especially, I think it's harder for Christian believers to process, even though we study the word, we know. I think sometimes there's so much superficial, churchy type things that when we come into real impact, real things where we're having to face God one-on-one, it's hard, because you look at what you knew, what you was told about God, and then you figure out that you learn more about God in your circumstances, or when you go through things and you find out, oh wow, this is a real God.
Yeah. Reality.
This a real God. He is not playing. Like, this a real God.
Right.
So I didn't know how to talk to somebody who had been through grief and dealt with the kind of grief I was feeling. Because I grieved my husband. Yes, I missed him a lot. But I was grieving because I didn't understand what God was doing. Who do you talk to? I didn't know. I heard everybody talking about, I heard people say, grief counseling, because you want to deal with your loss of your loved one. But my grief was, I was grieving because of what God did or allowed.
My God. God allowed.
Where are those conversations? You know what I'm saying? So I didn't know, who do I talk to without somebody coming and being super deep and trying to fix me, instead of just hearing me, letting me examine what I'm feeling, so I can put these feelings out before me and see that's doubt, that's fear, that's anxiety, that's this, that's not you. That is not has anything to do with God. That is the enemy. I needed somebody to talk me through the hard time. I didn't want somebody to come in and just fix me superficially, and because they were a pastor or because they were a minister, I wanted somebody that understood where I was in this place. And that's why I can relate to Job so much, because Job couldn't could you imagine he's having a conversation with his wife and she's saying stuff like, curse God and die?
My
You know,
goodness.
could you
Understand.
imagine having people around you saying, "Girl, you know, God caused this to happen for." Wait, what? God, what? Cause? No. He didn't cause. He allowed.
You
And it,
allow.
it was just, you know, so I was getting jumbled. I was like shut down. I don't want to talk. I don't want nothing. I need to figure out God, we got to talk about this. What did I miss? And the only thing he gave me was, my ways are not your ways.
Mm.
Neither are my thoughts your
Thoughts,